I'm going to introduce our guest for today, who is an extremely accomplished clown. She's been performing for many, many years. I think I'm going to say around 36 years, though she may correct me, as a clown, that is. And she's published 2 books, one of which has just come out, and we're going to talk about that. She has a huge string of hit shows behind her. She has taught over 250, probably far more than 250 clown workshops. I got that number off the website, but I'm sure that you must have taught even more than that by now. She's an incredible person, really lovely, always to talk to, and is at the cutting edge of whatever's going on in the clown world. So a very big welcome to you, if I can make this technology work, Caroline Dream. Hello.
Hello, all the way from Barcelona or Spain.
Barcelona. Awesome. So, Caroline, let's talk. Let's talk about clowns and clowning and what's changed. So, the last time we talked online in a sort of public forum was, I think, about 15 months ago, maybe, a little over a year ago. And really kind of the pandemic was just getting started, although we thought we didn't know that at the time. And I think both of us were a bit wary about doing, switching our clown teaching to sort of online, and how would that work? And since then, it seems to me that you have been, of all the kind of clown teachers and people I've seen, you've been one of the people that's been out there, possibly the most, innovating, creating different kinds of clown experiences and workshops for different kinds of people. And I am just really fascinated and excited to know what you've learned along that journey. I mean, how did it start? What kind of hiccups and obstacles did you encounter? What have you learned that really works? I'm speaking of teaching here, of your online teaching. How has it been?
Well, yeah, no, it's been a long process, and one in which I'm still learning stuff, but I feel much more comfortable about it, obviously, now than at the beginning. At the beginning, it was so stressful. What with all the technical stuff, which is just a total headache, setting up a video studio, sound studio, the whole works here. But that aside, the actual teaching as well, how to best keep people engaged on this format, which is kind of 2D, isn't it? When we're all so used to doing 3-dimensional stuff and being able to touch each other and, fall on the floor without disappearing altogether, it was just such a learning experience, how we can use this environment to our advantage as clowns rather than for it to be an impediment, And over the process of the months that I've worked with different groups, it's just been, mind-blowing what is possible online, and how much fun and how much connection and how much we can communicate in this format as well. So teaching-wise, what did I learn? Well, we started off with the normal formats, like 2 days, totally intensive, and basically we realized very quickly that format is just too horrendously intensive online. Occasionally we do it now still. When I say we, I'm talking about me and my husband Alex Navarro. So occasionally we set up courses like that, but in general we realized that it's better to keep the sessions 2.5 to 3 hours long.
Wow, even that seems long to me.
Yeah, but it's not. It actually flies by when you've got even a group of 6 dedicated clowns, enthusiastic clowns. That kind of time flies by. So yeah, no, it's really not long at all. Though it's long enough to really give strong information and get everybody up and working, and make sure that everyone's had an experience with their nose on and this, enjoying themselves in their space. And so, yeah, I think less than that would be too little. I've never actually done a shorter one. Like 2 hours is the shortest one I've done. But yeah.
And do you tend to, because I've seen that you've been doing, I think, some for beginners as well as some for more experienced clowns online. And so talk us through a little bit, like, let's say a beginner's workshop. Are you doing the normal games and kind of warm-ups that you would do in person, or have you developed new things?
Both. What I did right at the beginning was I sifted through, thank God, I have just masses and masses and masses of exercises, games and material from having created loads and loads of in-person courses over the years. So I sifted through everything and thought, well, how can you do this game online? And so that was a huge process of adapting games and adapting improvisations to the camera, and especially the duos and trios, and for when you have 4 clowns on stage, wow, how does that work online on Zoom? That just cuts people off if you're not, if someone else is speaking, then you can't speak, and all that sort of stuff. So
have you found that a way that works to for example, to do group pieces, group improvs?
The group ones are just fantastic. I mean, I love it. It's amazing actually what you can. There is a handicap in terms of, like, you can't necessarily hear everything that people are saying, but it actually is a very good teaching tool, which means you got to listen. You got to listen with even more depth than you would in person. It's like you just cannot not listen on a Zoom when you're working with other people, because Zoom doesn't allow you to. So how
do you set that up? Do you have people on gallery mode so they can see everyone else, or on speaker mode so that whoever's only person speaking is seen? Do you have sort of ways that you've figured out to use the technology?
Well, Zoom fortunately has, improved their, when I first started, you could only have one person spotlighted at any given time. So everyone had to turn their cameras off apart from the 2 who were performing. And now they allow you to spotlight up to 6 people, I think it is. So you can actually spotlight people, and then the people who are spotlighted can put their camera on gallery mode so that they have an audience, or they can keep it on the spotlight so they can just watch the people who are performing with them. So there's all sorts of possibilities. But have you
tried things that? Sorry, go on.
The big difference is that I always work with Alex as a technician, or he works with me as a technician, or if we're teaching together, we swap that role around. There always has to be someone on the technical side, creating the small groups, the rooms, dealing with any technical problems, putting on the music. I mean, in this room now we've got 6 screens, because Alex is such a amazing
tech guy,
technical genius. He's found all these apps that you can just kind of press a button on the app and it will change you from gallery mode to speaker mode view, and all these things that actually help the agility of teaching, so you're not clicking and trying to find the right button and all that sort of stuff.
That's so amazing. He's over there normally. You've really got it streamlined. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mainly because he keeps going, oh, look, I've just found this, which is fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah, he's got a screen for the music, a screen for the sound effects, a screen for the Zoom app things. And we've got a big screen in front of us so that we can see everybody really well, not just on a computer screen, etc., etc.
Have there been any games that you've tried or exercises you've tried that just completely fell flat and were like, no, it's not going to work online?
Yes. One of them that comes to mind was an exercise where how was it? One person had to play a musical instrument or something, or just pretend, create music, and then another person had to come on and interrupt them and create problems for them. But of course, they were there creating the music, and they couldn't hear anything else. I mean, and we couldn't hear anything else either, because Zoom was just going crazy with the sound levels. So that was a learning thing. And another game that didn't work was a really basic one, which is, you both clap to the left, or you both clap to the right, or you both clap to the middle. And if you do the clap together, then the next one is celebration. Yeah? Don't know if you know that game.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing it down and then up and then down and then up. Yeah.
Right.
The only problem is that it depends on where you are in the world. Your connection may be 3 seconds later.
Right.
So me and you, I might be doing this, and you might be doing this when you receive the image, but I'm seeing you 3 seconds later.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing just that's impossible. It just doesn't work.
Also, there's a weird mirror thing, isn't there, with directions, where sometimes you're seeing yourself the right way around, and sometimes it's the wrong way around.
Exactly. That, yeah, confusing. So that doesn't work. But I've tried all sorts of different stuff out, because that's the only way, to trial and error. And so much stuff has worked, thank God. Or I found a way to make it work.
What's lacking for you? Like, what really is not possible in a sort of complete, what do you miss?
Oh, well, I've done some in-person courses recently. And so I got onto my computer and I did all the exercises that you cannot do online, which are lots as well, especially the group exercises, where people are physically working together, and that's impossible. Yeah. So you're doing all Siamese stuff, or you're working in a group of 5, and there's lots of stuff you can't do online in terms of the physicality, to show great physical connection. That doesn't.
It's very interesting, because different styles or approaches of clowning seem to be affected differently, right? And we were talking to Moshe Cohen last week, and his particular approach was sort of this Zen clown, which is much more internal, in the sense that you're working a lot with the idea of the inner clown. Whereas I would, characterize your clowning as being more external, in the sense of it's more about the comedy, the connection, the finding the funny, finding the routine, finding the character. And so the challenges are completely different for the two different approaches. I mean, I've put it very bluntly, but just to make the point that for Moshe, because it's about inner clowning, it's actually quite well suited to being online, because a person on their own in their room can do it perfectly well with some instruction. Whereas you've got this challenge of how do you actually connect people using technology which is imperfect in certain ways.
Yeah, but there's advantages too, like people work in their bedrooms, for instance, which you could never possibly create in person. So they've got sofas or bed, I've had people with showers in the background, and then their bed in the middle ground, and then, like all sorts of objects and things like that, which is just like, for clowns, it's like just amazing. And then, of course, they also can open doors, and suddenly their wife will walk in, or the 3 dogs that they have hidden behind there just bounding in, or the baby starts crying, or the kid walks by, and all sorts of amazingly comical possibilities, because they can, I'll say, okay, so everyone go and get that, and they'll go away for 10 seconds and they'll find something either that or something similar, you know, because they're at home. So there's lots of extra possibilities just because people have so many stimuli around them as well.
Yeah, yeah, and everyday things which are great for clowning, aren't they?
Yes, yes.
Whereas in a studio, we're a bit like, it's great for a dancer, but you know, an empty studio isn't great for a clown in some ways.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, for instance, I remember an improvisation from someone who had this kitchen behind him, and so he had this breakfast bar that he could use as like a, you know, coming up and down from behind it. And then, you know, he was bald, and he suddenly just brought up a watermelon from behind there, and like we could see that it wasn't his head, but it was just great. So like he had just all these possibilities, which you know, I feel really it stimulates people's creativity and is just so wonderfully comic as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. So here was kind of the heart of my question, I guess, is that, do you feel that this being forced to go online and do this has opened up new possibilities and new kinds of clowning, or new kinds of teaching clowning?
Almost definitely. I mean, I'd thought about doing online teaching, but the whole idea of it just seemed like, well, one day I'll do that, you know. And so this pandemic, well, really just forced me to do it, you know. And yes, it's a different style of teaching, because you have to work with the camera, basically. So you have to, you know, people have to learn how to use the camera to great advantage. But I mean, clowns have just been so incredibly adaptive in this time, you know, and I've seen so many people put up videos online of themselves just watching the rainfall outside their house, or, you know, whatever. And I think in general, clowns have just thrown themselves into this new possibility, and it's odd, really, because we're kind of behind everybody else on this. Videos have been, you know, YouTubers have been going for years, so it's about time we did it, really. It's like been a kick up the arse for us, really. And I'm glad, because we're actually now in the public space, because the public space is here in internet now. So we needed to make that leap, I feel.
Right. And that's where clowns live, or should live, in public space.
In public space, I was going to say, in the internet.
No. Wherever the public space is, right? The forum, the marketplace.
Yes. Create audiences. Like we can gain audiences now online, which is just fantastic.
Do you think this, because, you know, a lot of people lament that and are like, no, I'm not doing it. I want, you know, I need that in person. I need the presence. That's crucial to clowning.
Yes, I agree. I mean, if someone told me, that's it, you're only ever going to be able to teach online, I would just like get really depressed, because I love in-person teaching. I mean, it's just wonderful to look people in the eyes and have that energy, you know, that you don't have, you know, you can't create that person-to-person feeling. I mean, you can create the energy of clowning, but the heart space is for me is an in-person thing, you know, when you really feel like you leave and you're friends forever, you know.
I don't know. I kind of agree, but I also think, I've met some people online where we've only ever had conversations on Zoom, and I feel incredibly connected to them.
Well, yes. No, you're right. I was saying it at the same time. I was going, that's not true. You know, I have groups that have WhatsApp groups, and they're still chatting away to each other. So obviously it's not true. But I don't know how to describe
what is it about presence that's so, something about the magic of that we really cling on to, isn't there?
I think we need it. I think it's just it's like we're all going to die if we don't get hugs in life. You know, in a way, it's the same thing for me. It's a real hug to meet people, even if you're not hugging them. Just be with them.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is we can't really hug people so much at the moment.
No.
Even when we're with them.
Yes, but it does make a huge difference to be in person. You know, I did one in-person group the other day, and the whole time we were wearing masks, even performing as clowns. Yeah, everybody was wearing masks the whole time, because indoors, that's the regulation right now. And so even outdoors at that time, we had to wear masks. That's no longer the case in Barcelona. And then there was suddenly, right at the end of the course, we all sat down and had a drink together. And there, obviously, people had to pull their masks down to have a drink. And it was just shocking how you'd imagine their faces and how their faces really were. I mean, I was so surprised. But surprisingly, you can clown like that. You don't. You can, with your eyes, you can, and your bodies, you can do it all. So that's another learning thing. You know, I would have thought that was impossible for a clown to be always with a mask on.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
so what I've learned over this period of time is how incredibly adaptable clowns are and how resilient they are. I mean, it's just amazing. You know, if you have a clown spirit, you can clown anywhere and under any circumstances. It's incredible.
What have you? Yeah, so that was going to be another question I wanted to ask you, Caroline. Was what have you noticed? And you've kind of started answering that really. What have you noticed about people from all this contact you've had with people all over the world? As you know, what have you learned about them, not just as clowns, but as human beings, and how they're dealing with what they're going through at the moment?
Well, you know, everybody's living in different circumstances, as you said. As I said before, Peru is still going through it. States, it's just got really worse. So people connecting, you know, from their countries, and I don't necessarily know what's going on in their country at that moment in time. But what I've seen is that obviously people have been very lonely, and so they just, you know, they love being on the Zoom call. You know, like as I said, my classes last 2.5 hours, and then I just leave the class open, and they'll stay there and chat to each other.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because you know, people want to. Oh well, yeah, a bit more time to be with each other and just have a chat. You know, like instead of going down the bar, they want to do it after the class. So people need connection, and I've also felt that seriousness has been a big problem for a lot of people as well. People have vocalized that, you know, oh, I've just been so serious in the last year, you know, and it's killing me. You know, they're beginning to realize that seriousness is just a lethal, toxic energy, you know. So they also, people, for instance, in my beginner's class, they come because of that, because they just feel that they've become too serious in their lives.
So you're bringing lightness.
Clowning is lightness, isn't it? I mean, it's just adding that sense of humor to any situation. Like, I was so glad that I was a clown during the pandemic. Oh my God, being able to have a bit of a laugh with other clowns about really dense things that were going on. And also just seeing you know, like, oh my God, I'm in a horror movie. How funny is that? You know, even though the laugh is kind of, oh my God, you know, between crying and laughter. Laughter does win through, fortunately, if you've been clowning a long time. So,
what was for you the darkest moment going through that period?
Right at the beginning, right at the beginning was the darkest moment, because basically lockdown happened here in Spain, and Alex, my husband, got ill with coronavirus. So he had it. And at that time, the doctors just did not know anything. Nobody wanted to even, come anywhere near somebody with coronavirus. It was just this huge panic. And I was just like, oh my God, like normally you can get somebody who's responsible, like a doctor or a hospital or somebody to just, help you and support you through a period like that. And there was nobody. They just kept saying, don't bring him in, don't bring him in, don't bring him in.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, so now I have to look after him. And so there was a moment when I realized that his breathing was getting really shallow, like he was breathing like.
And you were at home.
Oxygen, yeah. Fortunately, I have a doctor friend who I was able to ring up, and he said, okay, so count his breaths. So I was counting his breath, and after I told him how many breaths in a minute, he said, just take him to the hospital now. I was like, oh, okay, right. So that was the darkest moment. The take him to the hospital now, I think, was the darkest moment.
It's hard to clown around that.
Well, he could. I wasn't so able to clown at that moment, but Alex was writing coronavirus death sketches, if you remember, from his hospital bed. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. Yeah, he was coming up with all these jokes and writing sketches and putting them online about the coronavirus and dying and hospital food and all sorts of things.
There's a couple of comments here. Adam Gertzikov, you may know him. He's in Barcelona. Or he's a new home in Barcelona, he says. Anyway, Adam says, clowning during a pandemic is hard. I agree that the opening of the pandemic was the worst because it was about the unknown. No one knew what would happen. And the unknown, in some ways, is what the clown work is training us for. That's an interesting perspective.
Totally agree, Adam. Yeah. I mean, it was that, wasn't it? It was like, oh, 2-week lockdown. Oh no, there's another 2 weeks, another 2 weeks. And yeah, we had no idea. The world had stopped out there and we were like locked in our houses. This great unknown, yeah.
I'm really fascinated, Caroline, like on a personal note, about what you were saying just about clowning getting you through that, something that's difficult, because you were able to joke with other clowns and you're able to do this for yourself in your life. And it's, honestly, this is like an honesty moment. As a clown performer and teacher, it's the thing that I find hardest is when I'm in performance mode, I find it very easy to joke around and be silly and be ridiculous. And I think that's why I do it, right? Because when I sort of switch that on, I can go there. And I can do that in teaching as well, because I sort of am performing in that moment. But I have always really struggled with this because I am a very serious person, beneath this crazy exterior. And so bringing that quality into everyday life is something that really kind of, I struggle with. So do you have how do you do that? Is it just a natural thing you've always had and done? Or do you find there are some ways that you can consciously bring that lightness and humor into real life, sort of everyday situations without sticking your nose on?
Right, yeah. No, with my students years ago, I realized that, they'd go away from class and then it would be like life was normal, and then they'd come back to class and just perform again. And so in between, they were just kind of like, their energy was kind of, They were losing the clown in the week, week to week. And so I started to prepare some activities for them to do, really brief activities for them to do in their day-to-day lives, just to keep the clowning energy going. Because, well, I live with a clown, so I'm lucky, you know. So.
A very fine one as well.
And also, I think my personality has always been optimistic and positive, almost too optimistic and positive. If anything, I would say that was my problem. And so, yeah, I wanted to help them to find ways to keep the clown energy alive. So I created a whole series of clown practices and clown. You know, one of the things that I created was a lying contest, for instance. So they would get points for the types of lies that they put up, you know, said to people, and then, you know, we'd have this stupid prize giving ceremony at the end of the week. So those sorts of things really, really helped, which is why in my new book,
yes,
the last section here is clown practices. So you've got 4 weeks of clown practices in the last in the last section, which are just kind of short things that you can do to keep playful energy going in your life, day by day. And
I think that's wonderful. That's so wonderful. Marianne says on the comments, "This is my fundamental quest." I think that she's referring to what I said as well about bringing it into your everyday life.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so easy. But we don't do it. Yeah, because it's not like, oh, clowning, I'll like brush your teeth. Yeah, you do that every day. Why do you do it every day? Well, you just created it as a habit, haven't you? You just made a habit out of brushing your teeth. And it's the same with all sorts of things. And of course, anything that requires a little bit more energy on your part sort of doesn't always become the habit, you know, like doing something good for you, like eating well or yoga or whatever. That can easily just get lost, can't it, in the day-to-day. So for me, it's about creating the habit of, when you're cooking, let your imagination go and pretend you're a French chef and start doing it as a French chef might do. You know, we will cook it.
Alors, zut alors, merde.
So just
cut off my finger.
That you propose to yourself every day, you know, it just changes your energy so completely. It's just really, it's a bit like giving yourself, I don't know, having a drink or something, isn't it? Doing a bit of clowning. That's
a great way of thinking about it. It's like having a drink, and it's a lot cheaper and better for your body.
Yeah, it's like having one of those uplifting drinks, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly feel a bit like I'm drunk when I'm actually performing, in a sense. Like, you do feel like you're in an altered state, right? So if you can take yourself into that, in everyday situations, just for 10 minutes, it's clearly going to have great health benefits, mental health and physical health.
Well, sure. I mean, you've got kids, haven't you? You play with the kids. And that brings you so much joy. And for me, that's part of the practice of clowning, is to play with other people. And so if you've got kids, well, I mean, you've got it made.
Yeah, I mean, they do remind me. It's interesting. One of my kids is kind of like the innocent clown energy, and the other is like the experienced clown energy, you know. So they're completely different, like polar opposites almost. So with one of them, it's easy to play. Like, I can just get down and do anything, and she'll be like, you know, yeah, daddy, let's do it, you know. And in fact, she'll even be kind of giving me coaching during the game. You know, she'll be telling me what to do next in the game. But the other daughter is maybe takes more after me in that she's quite serious. And so to draw her into a game actually takes quite a bit of work. So, but what you just said about habits is really interesting, Caroline, because it is true. The whole point of habits, the whole reason that we have habits as humans is that they're efficiency devices, right? They're about saving energy and making something so automatic that we don't have to think about it and make a decision, because decision making takes energy. And that's why, you know, genetically we have habits, we produce habits. But so if something requires a little bit more energy, or we feel that it's going to require a bit more energy, it's that much harder to turn that into a habit. So, you know, there must be some really awesome ways we could think about how to introduce clowning habits into the everyday in a way that maybe doesn't feel like it's hard work, or there's some other incentive that makes us want to do the hard work if it is?
For me, it's always about the greater good. Yeah, like the service to humanity. For me, that's a real, I don't know, it just gets me out of bed in the morning.
Motivation.
Yeah, it's a real motivator. The whole, you know, I believe in bringing light and clowning and laughter to the world. And it's just something that's, you know, yeah, it's a passion. And so that is what motivates me to do it, even when I don't have to do it, you know.
Yeah, that's a really good one to remember.
So the better clown you are, the more able you are to, you know, change other people. You know, I remember so clearly when my mother died, I went to the funeral in England, and as I was traveling back, I was just so like, I was just out, I was in the black space. And this person just walked past me, looked me in the eyes, and just smiled at me with this huge, genuine smile. It just lit up my world. I mean, it was so amazing. And I just thought that in that moment, like how easy it is. You have no idea who's going to need you to be smiling or playful or, you know, fully present with them. So you just have to keep on just giving it out, and it really can transform people. And maybe it's just what they need, you looking at them and smiling at them. And that's just not something that happens in general. We're all too like closed off, or we take out our phone or whatever. So yeah, I think clowns are able to do that, and for me certainly it's a motivator.
That's very inspiring. I find that very inspiring. And I often say in my workshops, this time right now needs us more than perhaps any other time that we've experienced. You know, needs us as in clowns. Yes,
totally. Needs us to bring out the resilience in other people and the hope, and keep the hope alive in other people. Totally.
And as you say, kind of counteracting this seriousness, balancing it.
Seriousness and suffering. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of people who are suffering terribly around the world right now. So, you know, I think we can do a lot to help that on lots of different levels.
I would love to go on talking all year. And we can go on another 10 minutes or so, but I just wanted to remind people, if anybody has questions for Caroline, people who are watching, then do just put them in the comments and we'll feed them into the conversation. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the book, Caroline. I don't know if you, particularly for me, what is different and new about this? Can you kind of give us a distinction from the first book to this book? What's the journey?
The first book to this book, the different color, aren't they?
Oh, that's it. It's the different color.
Really? What else?
Because the title is quite similar in some ways.
No, Clown Yourself Clown Yourself is, I decided I was going to give it all the way. I went to a conference, and somebody came up on stage and said, if you're going to write a book, give away all your best stuff.
Wow.
And I was like, right, you're on. So in here, I've put 38 clowning exercises and various games in here because, you know, we need to get it. I am a firm believer in generosity and like sharing, and I think it's really important that our information gets out there, because I know that you're going to maybe find one exercise in there, but you're not going to do it like I do it. You're going to make it yours. You're going to change it and make it, you're going to adapt it. It's just going to maybe inspire you to doing something else, which is what other clown teachers have done for me. So first of all, that I wanted to give lots of practical information. So here's the theory, and here's how you can go away and practice it. Here's an exercise for you to go away and practice it.
Yeah.
So all the time I'm doing that. So I'm giving away all what I've learned over the past sort of 6 years since I wrote and published the last book. What happened when I finished publishing the last book, I just went crazy. I started creating clown courses with different exercises and information, and so I learned loads, and I'm still doing the same now. And so I thought, well, okay, so if I give away all this stuff, then I'm just going to have to go away and learn a whole load of new stuff for my students. Otherwise, they're going to go, oh, this is all in your book. So for me, it's like I'm a clown in reality, not just on stage. So for me, it's just, as we were saying before, like, and a huge motivator to just carry on exploring and keep me curious, is to just keep giving it all away. So that's what I've done. Basically, there's kind of lots of technical information, a lot of practical information, and also motivators, because as I said before, I found that my students really needed motivating. And so there's a whole chapter on why clowning is, why I think clowning is good for us and why it's good for other people. And I've investigated into science and psychology and all sorts of things, because I felt it was really important that, you know, we start pooling that information as well, because I know that some hospital clowns have already started doing scientific studies and so on, but there's still lots to be explored and written down, basically, about why.
It's interesting because my wife Molly and I just started a project called the Reconnection Project, which we got some funding for, and it's about bringing together the Feldenkrais that she does with clowning.
Oh, great.
And which has been done before, you know, Monica Pagneux and various people who studied with Moshe Feldenkrais in the theater world and have brought those two things together. And I don't know if you know about Feldenkrais. But yeah, it's often used in theater training. But, you know, she's been using it recently, my wife that is, to help people with chronic pain, physical pain. And there's clearly a lot of evidence that shows that clowning can really help with that as well. And I think it's all rooted in the fact that a lot of people's chronic pain, when it's been going on a really long time, is closely related to psychological and emotional issues that are stuck, you know, that need to be resolved. And so, of course, anything that accesses the humor, the sense of humor or the lightness or the mood of a person, as well as something like Feldenkrais that accesses the nervous system, is actually a really great combination of things. So we're interviewing over the next 2 months, we're interviewing 10 different people for the Reconnection Project who are doing similar things. So I've started looking around and doing research and found amazing people who are actually from the clown world and the Feldenkrais world, or this kind of somatic practice, embodiment kind of world, and are bringing these things together in really cool ways. So there's a lot of people out there doing this.
Wow,
and super excited, to be talking to them and seeing if we, as you just said, really seeing if we can sort of bring together some of this information, and we're going to release it as a podcast over a number of weeks, and then I don't know, maybe publish a book or something, bringing those findings together.
Yeah, there's so many people looking for that information, and all your information, guys. Anything that you have that people are looking for it, and people keep contacting me and wondering where they can, hook up with other people. So yes, we got to get it out there.
And as a side note, what you mentioned earlier about your exercises that you set some years ago for your students to stop them being so serious in everyday life. I think there should be course. You could do a course on that. I would take it.
No. I have so many projects and ideas, you would not believe it, and that's certainly one of them. But I don't know. I haven't got enough time. I interviewed about 60 clown teachers for my new book my third book over the last year.
Wow.
And that's just an ongoing project as well. So I've got so many creative projects on the boil, but definitely keep that one in mind.
Yeah. Well, you're an amazingly prolific person. I'm in awe and full of respect for your work, Caroline, because it's always fascinating talking to you, because you've always taken it in a new direction, and there's always a new book or a new perspective, and lots of new perspectives, in fact. So it's just wonderful having this opportunity to talk to you. I don't know if there's any more questions that have come through since we've been chatting that we could just speak to before we finish up. Let me have a look. Oh, Marianne has commented, keeping practices such as yoga is easy to do. Sometimes if there is no other witness, it may be a little more difficult. I live alone, and though I could do so in an imaginary world because I'm prone to amusing myself, I can just put it in another frame of mind. Right. Yeah, I suppose being on your own is a whole challenge in itself, right? And it's a bit like that thing of trying to rehearse a clown show. You've got no audience, which is always a challenge. That's an old challenge, right? Because you're often in a rehearsal room on your own, and so much of clowning is about bouncing off other people. And how do you sort of imagine what those responses are going to be?
Yeah.
Interesting challenge. And somebody else has said, my favorite clowning thing for pandemic is window shows at assisted living and nursing homes for residents on lockdown. Window shows? What's that?
Like outside the windows, I presume.
Oh.
That's a brilliant idea. If it is that, wow. Yes.
That's great. Yeah. But in a way, I suppose your Zoom, your screen is like a window as well, right? It's like a little window.
Yes. A window on lots of different lives. Yeah. No, that's why I'm super curious about how people live. So I just love being invited to so many people's homes over
I know, me too. And not giving anything away yourself by you've just got the red curtain there, Caroline. So
well, look at my spotty pillow.
If you move that red curtain, there'd be just like a mess, a huge mess everywhere, right? Just stuff.
There's actually a green screen behind there, so that I can open it up and suddenly have video backgrounds and stuff like that. That's all there is in there. It's an empty room, this one, really.
So it's your studio room.
My studio room, yeah.
Marianne says, yes, in assisted living facilities only allow window visits. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Hospitals, I suppose that would be possible, particularly if you had one of those things that window cleaners have where they can go up and down.
That's the only way you can do it in hospitals. The patients are usually on the first floor.
Wouldn't that be amazing to have one of those and just like stop outside some window of a ward really high up and do a little show through the window.
It could be a bit
You'd have
dangerous.
to have harnesses, probably. Just
yeah, exactly. Clowns would just wouldn't be aware. They'd start climbing up and maybe put themselves in
could
danger.
be a little dangerous. Maybe circus performers who actually
yes,
able to do things safely. Lee says, I struggled with that during both my BA and MA, especially when working with interacting forms of clowning. Oh, I think he's talking about the working on your own in a studio and trying to imagine an audience.
That's so hard. Yeah.
Great. Well, and I've got a lot of thanks bunches. I truly believe all clowns need to continue to grow with learning and evolving. Totally, says Marianne. Awesome, you guys. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of the hour, so I guess it's a good time to wrap up. But I'm sad to say goodbye because, you know, just love talking to you and about these things.
Yeah,
so
well,
thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure to chat with you as well. You know, it's great to have these connections every few months and see where we are and what we're at. And keep joyful. Keep joyful.
Yeah.
Keep that energy going.
Yeah, so don't let the darkness swallow you up. Because the thing is, the darkness is there, and it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? It's there. There is always darkness when there is light.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, you know, us clowns are always joyful and happy and, you know, everything's so wonderful all the time. I think that the darkness actually feeds the clown as much as the lightness. You know, we can get a lot out of all our fears and paranoias, and as long as we're expressing it on a regular basis through clown, we'll stay alive, we'll survive.
Yeah. I love those ideas, and also love the fact that you're so pragmatic and practical, and you've got so many amazing tools to turn that sort of theory into actually something that makes a difference. So thank you for that. And I'm really looking forward to reading that book and looking forward to talking to you the next time.
Thank you so much. Hugs and
awesome.
kisses.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. See you again. Oh, and just to mention, next week, I'm talking to Jerry Flanagan, who is an awesome teacher in the UK. I'll be talking to him about this time next week. So bye, everyone. Have an awesome week. See you again soon.